I was the #1 football player in America at my position. So when I got to LSU day one, they just moved me to the front of the line. I got drafted in the 7th round by the Green Bay Packers, way later than expected. It felt like, 2 days at that point, and then finally get called drafted. Long story short, I get drafted by the Green Bay Packers, my first ever NFL game. I get hit so hard.
Jesus.
I wake up in an ambulance. And, you're in the NFL, and most people in your respective sport, you're only able to play that till high school for the most part. And some people are a little bit more blessed, they're able to go to play this in college. And then if you're fortunate, really, really fortunate like I was able to be, you get to play it at a professional level. But then that is it. There's no next step.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Business is War podcast. On this platform, we speak to athletes, politicians, business owners, entrepreneurs, regular housewives. We speak to anybody that has a unique and compelling story that allows us to learn. Because for me, this is where I get my church. This is where I get my understanding of things. And it allows me to continue to get better as I'm on this journey called life, and I'm a lifelong learner. Today's guest is Malachi Dupre, a local Louisiana standout football player that eventually ends in the NFL, the National Football League, the highest level of football, and now he's an entrepreneur here in New Orleans, and we want to chronicle his story together, and we're going to learn everything we can, and we want to thank you for coming to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Malachi, how old are you?
30 years old.
So listen, that's a bad question in athletics because the first thing a person think about when they think about their age is how long their career is going to last or maybe where they are in their career. So me as a former boxer, when you ask me how old I am, man, that's a bad question. I hate that, exactly. But I know people who own that.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? Now, how do you feel at your age?
You know what? I feel really good. I feel accomplished. I feel like a lot of people ask me that question all the time when they see some of my accomplishments off the field. They're like, how old are you? I'm like 30. They're like, wow. And you've done X, Y, and Z. I feel like the biggest accomplishments I have is not personal ones, whether it be on the football field or in business. It's the ones that I can say I've impacted other people's lives and affected those. So in the time I've had on this earth, my biggest, I feel like, accomplishments are, those that I've been able to help people.
Wow. So you already have a servant leader style. So you're saying to me that, you've done some things in your lifetime, but the things that you hold most dear to you are the impacts you've had on others.
Absolutely. Yes, sir. I think that's the most important thing to me. And that's honestly, from a non-selfish perspective, financially, even in business, I've wanted to get into business to be able to create a, better work environment, a better workplace, and what people will be able to find in the same industries elsewhere. So.
Okay. So let's start from the beginning. When did you first carve your identity into football? When was that moment where you were like, okay, I got something here?
Yeah, I would say just growing up in a household with 2 older brothers, very fortunate to have a 2-parent household. And, my dad was a collegiate football player. And then, growing up again in a home with two older brothers where sports was pretty much just like what we did.
Now, were they better than you in sports?
I would say... no, I mean, my career went a lot further than theirs did. Yeah. But I would say at an early age, they were able to put it together more to where it looked as though, they might have had, much more to look forward to as far as sports went. Because I just
so you were the surprise. Now, are you the youngest?
I am, and I'm 15 years younger than my oldest brother. So my parents had us very spaced apart. But like I was just, talking to you a little bit before this even started. I went through some things as a child that, maybe a little bit misunderstood or people didn't know, I eventually turned out the way that I did. So listen,
how does the young adolescent, prepubescent teen, I deal with the testosterone, the new energy, the ball of energy, how do you deal with that? Because what happens is a lot of young boys, they fall out because they don't have a channel outlet.
That's right.
So what was your time? Give me your time structure around that.
Yeah. I feel like, just like any other boy, I had a lot of energy. I moved a lot, asked a lot of questions. I had a very outgoing personality. And again, at an age where, a kid should be able to, do that, it was frowned upon. And I feel like there was too much structure involved with some of the schools that I went to. And then that led to having issues in those schools and then having to move on from there. the first school I just mentioned to you that gave me the outlet that I felt I needed was John Curtis. And the crazy thing I tell people all the time, I don't know what actually happened, but the one thing I look to, one, I think, just the family aspect and how all the Curtises are hands-on with each individual kid. There's no favoritism. You're going to school with other Curtises, but they're pouring just as much into you as an individual as they would with their own grandchildren, their nieces, nephews, their sons, daughters. And I tell people all the time, like, our PE period in school, I went to Curtis in 6th grade. And we would practice our respective sports season, whatever season it was. We'd practice that, whatever your PE period was, which was before lunch. That would be when we would practice football or basketball. So think about it. I'm in 6th grade. We played tackle football. We would go to lunch. Before we would go to lunch, so, third period, your third class of the day would actually be football practice.
That's kind of different.
It was amazing, though, because it allowed all of us to go out there, get energy out. It was something that was different than the middle of your day. So it broke your day up almost. So you had 2 classes, go practice football, eat lunch, finish out your day with 2 more classes, and you go home, right?
This is an all-boys school, right?
John Curtis is co-ed, no.
Boys and girls. It's always been co-ed?
Always. Yeah, and they have a tremendous girls sport program, softball championships and basketball championships and track championships. Girls.
Shout out to John Curtis. Please keep helping young kids find their lane, because I think that's probably one of the most critical points in a person's life is that particular, I would say, 10 to 16 space,
1,000%. Very, very pivotal for your future. And I think, that's the age I feel like children, finding themselves in their identity, but also people don't do well enough or a good enough job of congratulating kids, telling them how good they're doing, or trying to point them in the right direction and being a good voice for them in their head. So
it sounds like you got a new calling to help these kids, man, because I don't see it. Because if you just go to a school today, you'll realize just how, the word I want to use is complicated it is. That's right. Because these kids need somewhere to go. They're taking PE out of school because of safety reasons. Can you imagine that? They take music out of school because they don't have any funding for it. I mean, like, what are they teaching them? Just math and science?
Yeah. Again, and I don't want to do something. I don't want to speak on something that I think a lot of people in what society has programmed us, be preconditioned to think school this, school that. But I tell people all the time, I think school and the way school is structured is a detriment to people as they get older. And what I mean by that is if you look at the way schools are structured from, show up at a certain time.
Yeah.
You have a lunch break when we tell you, you have a lunch break, and then you go home, we tell you. It's almost just like the workplace. So it's preconditioned in worker bees, right? And in school, there's only one right answer to a question.
Yeah.
And in the real world, there's, typically multiple answers and multiple ways to solve a problem.
Yeah.
And I think in school they don't do a good enough job of allowing that flexibility, and also, again, I think it's just a smooth transition from, school to the workplace, and create an environment that people are just used to, and you're preconditioned and you don't even really know subconsciously, oh, why is it okay for me to go to work every day to a 9 to 5? I got a lunch break when they tell me I can go to lunch. I got to, raise my hand for a restroom break, and then, my boss is giving me a job to do. I get it done and get to go home at the end of the night. It's just like school. It's the same thing. But I was at an early age.
So you identified the complication with that particular business model.
At an early age.
I don't understand that, because for me, I've always been taught, do what you got to do so that you can do what you want to do.
That's right.
And school was the got to do part where you just have to go and shoot the reps, chop the wood,
right,
and do those things, because it's kind of like, if you can't learn a system,
that's right,
then you can't learn how to break a system.
That's right.
And so for you to say, Elliott, I learned early on that the mechanics of this process ain't all that what it's cracked up to be. That's crazy to me.
You know what? I was just looking, I was like, what's applicable to life and success? And the majority of the day-to-day skills we use as adults right now, they're learned probably from anywhere from 1st grade till about 5th grade.
Okay.
I'm reading, writing, your addition, your subtraction.
What a spoon is, yes.
Exactly. After that, they start giving you a lot of time filler information that's not applicable at all to the real world. To
the next education czar of the United States, take algebra out of school, because there's no reason for it at all. At this point, right?
Yeah, I understand, but there's a metric to it, the discipline, but a lot of it is time filler. And if you look at all of the different stages and steps of education, unless you're going to school, especially, through college and the different degrees, unless you're going to school for something specific, your medicine, your engineering, your law, your architecture, certain specific trades and skills that you have to go to school for. And, shout out to all of those people that do that, because obviously we need the doctors, we need the lawyers, we need, these necessary professions. But if you're anybody else that's just going to school, what are you actually learning that's making you a better human in society, or someone that is prepared to go and be an entrepreneur, or someone in business, or even someone in the workplace? And I'm not saying go give pushback in the workplace. I'm not saying give pushback in school, because I think, there's a lot of things that are applicable to life and the discipline. And
Let me counter that.
Yeah.
What do you think the average person with no direction, no North Star, no understanding of what their aptitude is, no appetite, just been a child their whole life, now they're given at the age of 17 the right to pick their college degree? Mm-hmm. I'm going to be honest with you. When I was 17, I didn't know shit, and I knew I didn't know shit.
Right.
So for us to be like, okay, see, that's what makes you different. If you think about all of the people that you've grown up with, some dead, some in jail, some living lives that you would never want to live.
That's right.
You see the clear distinction in you. And
Absolutely.
So for the other ones, they might have needed a little structure.
1,000%. And that's the thing. That's the other side of it. I don't want people to think that I'm saying that structure isn't needed, that discipline isn't needed. I feel like that's necessary, and that's a necessary component of it. And I feel like, again, I'm someone who was a collegiate athlete, so I went to college. But then, everybody in my family still were college, graduates, and they went to college. So that was just something in my home that we were raised on, knowing education was important, the discipline around it, applying yourself. But I still, I knew that those were necessary components of life, but I feel like a different set of awareness for myself to know what I was able to apply to my life and what success would look like for me. And I feel as though, a lot of people's lives are different. It's just on us to try and have that awareness to realize like what we need more than others. So some people might have needed that structure. Some people might have needed that discipline. Whereas, again, I came from a 2-parent home. I came from having somebody.
I see it.
Yeah.
I talk to people every day who come from a single-parent home and have never known anybody to go to college or graduate from college. Right. And so you telling me that you kind of saw that already.
Yes. But again, I have the utmost respect for those that don't have that dynamic and haven't had that dynamic, and those who, that's who I have that sympathy for and that empathy for, because those are the people I want to help. Because those are the people that don't have that guidance, that direction, that know-how. You know what I mean? And I want to be a voice for those people, and I want to be there for those people. So, that's where my passion comes from.
Well, trust me when I tell you that you got to be a little selfish first before you can start giving back.
That's right.
Because the last thing Steve Harvey said, if you want to help poor people, don't be one. And I believe that 1,000%.
Yep.
And so that's one of the reasons why now I try to give back a little bit more, but don't get it twisted. I'm focused like a laser on the money.
That's right.
I'm here to make money and build something because I can and I do, and I know that that's my calling. So tell me, what is it like? What's the first thing what's the aha shock moment when you enter college as a football player?
You know what? Okay, that's a good question. I tell people all the time, my transition from high school to college was much different and much bigger.
Come on, give me the dirty details.
From the NFL, from college to the NFL. And why I say that is because when you're in high school, in the most respectful way possible, you could be out there playing against little Johnny or Sam that, is not as physically gifted as certain people that you're going to be coming to, play against when you go to the SEC. So I was very fortunate and blessed to be able to go to LSU and, play in the Southeastern Conference, which is the premier conference in all of college football.
It's pre-NFL.
Exactly. So, I'm out there playing against Alabama. I'm out there playing against, Georgia, Mississippi State, Arkansas, week in and week out. And, for me, it was a little different, and this also was a moment for me that I realized life wasn't fair. And again, I had that awareness. So fortunate for me, I was a number 1 football player in America at my position. So when I got to LSU day 1, they just moved me to the front of the line. Wow. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm an 18-year-old kid, and now there's 22 and 23-year-old guys that have been here 4 or 5 years. Wow. That there was a senior. And this is when I realized, again, life was not fair, and I could have been on the other side of favor. And I have been. there was a guy, he had been at, college he was a senior. He was a JUCO transfer the year before. He was the number 1 recruit to LSU at the time. And he had number 15. 15 was my number in high school.
They gave it to you.
Took it right off his back. And this was a guy that a year ago, I know they made all these promises to, but I guess athletically and then what he was able to give to the program, they felt as though, and that made me realize, man, there's a cutthroat world. And it made me realize
you had the empathy to feel it.
1,000%. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, this is not right. But then at the same time, I'm like, I'm on this side of favor right now. 15, my number, I'm about to take it. And then there's also a side of it that you got to have, you got to have that dog mentality in you to know, like, you know what, I'm here to really not make friends. I'm out here to grind and work and become the best I can be, right? It sounds crazy. So day one, like I said, I got moved to the front of the line. I saw a guy get his number taken off of his back, given to me. And you got to know how that makes me feel. They had I immediately had a target on my back for all those guys to try and prove that they were better than me. And I had to do what it took to prove that that wasn't the case.
Bro, you got through to the Wolves.
Literally, as an 18-year-old, skinny, just coming out of high school.
Got 9 friends, don't know nothing.
That's right. Yeah.
Man, I can't imagine that particular situation.
Yeah, no, let me tell you. And then the craziest part of it is fall camp that year. So fast forward, I get there in the summertime when you go to, I went to school in June, freshman. Fall camp starts in August. You practice for 3-4 weeks hard before your first game. You need to work your whole life for this. We were playing Wisconsin and Houston as our opening game. And, a lot of nerves building up around that, and then a lot of, you work your whole life for this moment. 2 weeks in the fall camp, I tear my hamstring. I pull it very, very badly. And I'm just like, oh, my God. Now, I'm on the other side of favor. They're like, oh, yeah, poop. Life goes on without you.
Cattle in the herd.
Literally. When the game comes, I'm like, oh, I'm about to go travel to my first game. I know I'm not playing. It's the first game of the year, and I'm missing it. And they're like, yeah, we'll be back in a couple of days. I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, oh, yeah, we're going to Houston. You're staying home. I remember having to watch that game basically in my college dorm on television. And it made me realize, like, wow. Like,
bro, you got a business class in the very beginning of the whole thing.
So when that happened, I was like, you know what? Like, that made me realize what the world was all about. So then, of course, put a chip on my shoulder. Mind you, day one, the day I stepped on campus, I was a starter. This bumped me down. I can't tell you how, like, point is, second game of the year, we're playing Sam Houston. So if you're playing at LSU, you're playing against the Sam Houston, again, those guys are really good football players. But they're not at the level of being
SEC.
LSU.
Yeah.
They're D1 AA, right? So, we're playing against Sam Houston. I'm not getting in the game. I'm like, Coach, what's up? Oh, you good? Come on. We just trying to make sure you heal. And I'm like, in my head, I know that ain't really what's happening, right?
But were you okay, though?
I was okay. I think, physically I felt fine. But again, I've been, out for like the last 2 or 3 weeks. Other guys did tremendous in the opening game. They make the most out of their opportunity. And I'm watching it on TV like, damn, that's my boy. Hell yeah, right? Like, keep going. And then practice the next week, I don't have my job that I had that I was just basically given to me. And I deserved it though. I was a good player. So that game I'm watching, I'm like, man. But I'm like, if I get an opportunity, I'm gonna make the most of it. I promise you. First, I get in the game, boom. Me and my boy Brandon Harris, he was a freshman quarterback with me at the time. He gets in the game, throws me a pass. I catch it. I'm like, okay. And that kind of get the nerves out. It's my first college catch. Boom.
Congratulations. Okay.
Next time we get the ball, I catch an amazing touchdown. First game. Now.
Okay.
My first game.
So your second pass.
Touchdown.
Man.
In the first game. So I'm like, you know what? I got this, right? Fast forward the next week, I start getting, I think the coaches realize I'm getting my feet under me. I'm not as nervous as, whatever. I got the nerves out the way. Second game, score a touchdown. And we're playing a New Mexico State, so a bigger opponent, and then all the other guys are upperclassmen. Oh, Rook, that ain't nothing. Wait till we play an SEC school. You got to get your mind right.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking in my head, what's the motive behind this? It's trying to make me nervous. They're not doing much uplifting. They just basically telling me, you ain't did crap yet, right? Like, you haven't done anything.
Damn.
We go play Mississippi State the next week. Now, it's a different energy. The whole stadium, if you're from Louisiana, LSU is crazy, but, for an SEC game, it's real different.
Death Valley.
Death Valley. We're playing against Mississippi State. Those dudes are huge. I'm like, damn. Point is, first SEC game, mind you, first game scored a touchdown, second game scored a touchdown. My first SEC game, I scored 2 touchdowns. And then I'm like, kind of like, now what? I've arrived. Right?
Okay. My name is
head.
Malachi. I'm up in here.
Right. Now I go to campus the next day, or, people looking at me like, okay, right? But at the same time, I think I still was given so many lessons prior to that made me realize you got to show up every day. And you got to keep chipping wood, because it can all be taken away from you in an instance if you're not able to perform, if you're not able to, basically do what you're here to do. It can be taken away from you in an instance. So I realized I had that chip on my shoulder at all times. And then that helped me, I scored a touchdown against Alabama as a freshman. So the games I grew up watching as a kid, I was out there dominating in a way that made me realize, okay, I got this, right?
So listen, they say that fast success builds ego.
That's right.
And slow success builds character.
That's right.
Who was your first quarterback? Who was your quarterback? Freshman
Anthony
year.
Jennings.
Freshman year. So you had more than one?
Brandon Harris, yeah, again, like, it just depended on who was doing well at the time. But Brandon Harris was my boy. But Anthony Jennings was my roommate. It's crazy. So Anthony Jennings was my roommate. He was in college before us, and then Brandon and I went in together. He was a highly touted #1 quarterback in the country. Shout out to Brandon. Brandon is the general manager now at the University of Texas football, doing tremendous.
Good for him, man. I'm glad to see that people can transition out the game,
That's
man.
Right. So he's doing great things. But yeah, I had 3 quarterbacks essentially in 3 years of my college career.
So no Joe Burrow.
Anthony, I left the year before Joe Burrow got there.
Man, call somebody, man.
Yeah. And I had another year eligibility. I left early for the NFL. Yeah.
Okay, so you're in college. You have had some freshman success. And what's your sophomore year like?
Even better.
Really?
So, sophomore year, I go out. Yeah, I mean, I was a freshman All-American, freshman All-SEC, and then, sophomore year kind of got to where it was like Malachi and a few, Mike Williams at Clemson, Juju Smith from USC. We were like the top 3 receivers in all of college football. But I'm there with Leonard Fournette, another New Orleans boy, Darius Geis. I got the 2 best running backs in college football on my team. And
man, what happened to Geis?
I think, man, like, Geis was one of the best running backs I've ever played with in my life.
I saw him.
I think he just got involved with some of the wrong stuff off the field.
Yeah.
And again, that's another example of just showing you what can happen if you do not do the right thing, and you gotta just always stay on that right path, because it
especially when you got a spotlight on you.
Literally, it could be taken away from you in an instance. People waiting on you to mess up.
And you know what? I don't like them people.
Me either.
Because I don't throw rocks, because I don't live in a glass house, and I don't judge a lot.
That's right.
I can only worry about me.
That's right.
And when I see a man fall, I don't laugh. I learn.
Right. But there's something to that, because if you have not been humbled, life will humble you so fast. Mm-hmm. And I think being humbled and having those moments is such a good learning experience for you. And that's what people need in life, right? Especially when you're sitting at the top and you have it all, you think you got it figured out. But guess what? It can be taken away from you in an instance. And I think that there's a certain level of gratitude and appreciation for those people who have had that experience where they've had it all and it was taken away from them, and they've had to regain that success, or they had to regain that, whatever it was at one point that made them who they were. And I think, but some people never recover from it, though.
Let me just tell you, one of the reasons that I won't say that I'm humble, but I am.
That's right.
I'm a God-fearing man. My mother instilled more love in me than anything else.
Right.
And sometimes I don't like it because it's my weakness.
Right.
Okay? But the reason that I don't get too far over my skis, as I like to say, is because the drive in me
That's right.
makes me realize I don't have nothing in comparison to what I want.
Right.
And so that's the only reason why I'm not one of these dudes who are out here with their chests out, Iron Chest Charlie, because, man, I feel like I need me 2-3 airplanes. I want me a couple buildings around here, you know what I'm saying? So that right there is what keeps me looking forward.
That's right.
I'm never satisfied. I don't know. I might need to go to therapy for that or something like that.
Right.
So you've had some very good freshman year, sophomore year, freshman year, sophomore, junior year. Junior year, how was your junior year comparison?
Junior year, there was expectations put on me, right? Mm-hmm. Freshman year, sophomore year, now he's bigger, stronger, faster. It's his time. Again,
Were you bigger, stronger, faster?
Absolutely. And mentally, I knew I was better than I ever was. Ooh. And in my head, I was going into that year just like you. I'm going to the NFL, right? I know I am. I'm better than all these dudes. And, again, I'm also able to practice every day with the best of the best. I'm at LSU.
Right.
Best running back in college. Two of the best running backs in college football.
Fournette was balling.
The best cornerback in college football. The best safety in college football. I'm on a team with future NFL Hall of Famers. I'm on a team with future NFL Pro Bowlers. Like, my whole team is full of guys that are going to be the next generation of NFL football players. And I'm also out there aware of this. And, so I was able to practice every day against guys that are going to the NFL, cornerbacks, safeties. And, we're out there working with each other, but then there was a level of dominance in my head that, like, these dudes can't stop me. So that's when I knew, I knew what was next for me. Mm-hmm. But again, playing football you have a lot of uncontrollables. It's a team sport. And again, like you asked, quarterback situations, whatever. Going to my junior year, I don't score a touchdown, I think, until my third, fourth, maybe fifth game of the year. We're playing Southern Miss. I ended up having 2 touchdowns. But it was just, I remember I watched the film back, the ESPN commentator was like, Malachi Dupre, where have you been, right? And it was because, I hadn't scored a touchdown, but again, there was an expectation put on me and on us as a
What
team.
were the factors in that? Were you just not targeted? Was the coverage better? Was the quarterback situation
Dude, I was there. I was at LSU before Joe Burrow in the new generation, the new age of LSU football where they throwing the ball as many times a game.
Yeah, high flying. Oh, Les Miles was your coach.
I had Les Miles.
Mr. Running from the left, running from the left or running from the right every single play.
And
man, call somebody.
With quarterbacks that they didn't have confidence in, with the best running backs in the country at the time. So you got two of the best running backs in the country. With the coach that is a run-first coach, with quarterbacks that didn't have confidence in.
Bro, I went to a game in LSU in Death Valley, and they ran the ball 70% times at a time.
Literally. I'm trying to tell you, it was like running the ball, first down, second down, throw the ball to Malachi, and Malachi only won third and when the world knows. So there was a tremendous, enormous amount of pressure on me all the time, to make the play. It was 3rd and 10, the defense knows they're about to throw the ball, and they're throwing the ball to Malachi because they only really threw the ball to me, which was unfair to the rest of the players. But they didn't, we throw the ball 8 to 10 times a game, and the majority of the targets will maybe be to me. Think about it. And the other 2, 3 might have been a Leonard on the screen, or Leonard just on an outlet pass, whatever. So. But that
what you just told me? You just taught me what it really means and how the players are impacted by a system that isn't beneficial.
1,000%.
Let me give you an example. If you look at the Saints, Peyton era now, the statistics for the players that were Peyton era and now are not the same, and I feel bad for those players. But guess what? When you got somebody on your team like a number 9 Drew Brees, you gotta love on him. You can't be. Man, listen, we should have never let that dude out of the Saints uniform.
Truly, man, you don't understand.
I do understand, and now we around here, we getting the brown paper bags back. Literally. But listen, so man, I hate that for you. So you're in your junior year. Mm-hmm. The offense isn't advantageous for you right now.
No.
And what's the play?
I get my feet under me. I finish the season very strong. We play against, Louisville with Lamar Jackson. The year he wins the Heisman, a very good team. We kind of blow them out in the bowl game. I end out with a bang, had like 150 yards in the game. Did my thing. I was like, I'm going to the league. Made the decision, went to the NFL. Still had a decently high draft.
Got to take your career by yourself.
Exactly. I had a decently high draft projection. Went with it. And then, had a good combine training, had a good combine, good pro day, and then, had these expectations. I kind of knew I wasn't going to go first round, but they were like second, third. And, I know my ability. So I'm like, I'm going to go to the real world and kill it in the NFL and leave college behind as a 21-year-old. Well, let's just say this. Draft comes up. This was my first experience of being, like, really, really humbled in a way, but still didn't let that kind of shake me or make me waver. I got drafted in the 7th round by the Green Bay Packers, way later than expected. I was sitting in my parents' house for 3 days, like, what is going on? Like, my name was, like, best available for, like, it felt like, 2 days at that point. And then finally get called drafted. And then I'm like, I'm about to go do this. long story short, I get drafted by the Green Bay Packers. My first ever NFL game. I get hit so hard.
Jesus.
I wake up in an ambulance. So that was my experience.
Okay, just let me unpack that. So you telling me that you've been playing football your whole life?
Yep.
And
Never
so
had nothing like this.
You telling me were you exposed over the middle or something?
I caught a screen pass. It was just like, like an RPO. So the quarterback can always throw us like a little bubble or like a little screen pass. So the quarterback said, "Hut, cornerback was offering me, go make a play." Did just that. I made the cornerback miss, and I just saw the end zone, and I was like, man, I'm about to score this.
Let me go and get this 6.
Never saw the safety coming. Hit me so hard. Boom. And he was an undrafted free agent rookie trying to make the team. And, he hit me so hard. I was like, wow. I woke up in an ambulance, like, what in the world? And I knew where I was. I was out for like 20 minutes. But then when I woke up, I was like, this is not good at all. But then that changed the whole trajectory of my whole life, man. Like, that one hit. That one play, like, was like, really changed my life in so many different ways. But I'm fortunate and thankful for it, honestly. So, yeah.
Malachi, that's not the way you wanted to start your career.
Absolutely not. No, but like I said, it made me a lot of who I am today. And again, that's being humble, right? I needed that. And to say, like you say, you are humble, I've always moved with a high level of humility. I've always treated everybody how I wanted to be treated. Even when I was the #1 player in American high school, even when I was this highly touted receiver, even when I was at LSU, felt like, I couldn't go anywhere without just being bothered, stopped, recognized, talked to. I always try to put myself in those people's shoes because I remember being a kid at one point, always looking up to people and what that felt like if you're not getting acknowledgement from them or, So I always move with like a high level of humility, and I always treated everybody the way I wanted to be treated. And fortunate for me, and it sounds crazy, people don't know this. And like most athletes, and what I hate, most athletes, their identity and who they wrap their whole self into is their sport. I never did that.
For sure.
I never did that and never allowed that to be who I was. So, fast forward to the day that I decided to never play football ever again.
Tell me when that day was.
Like you and I were talking previous to this, I started, I got into the merchant service business when I was still playing football. Mm-hmm. And, you're in the NFL and most people in your respective sport, you just get to play that, fortunately. Because it is a it's a blessing to be able to play a sport. You're only able to play that till high school for the most part. And some people are a little bit more blessed, they're able to go to play this in college. And then if you're fortunate, really, really fortunate like I was able to be, you get to play it at a professional level. But then that is it. There's no next step.
No.
You've reached it. So that's when you got to kind of look at yourself in the mirror and say, at a certain point in time, one day here sooner than later, this will be the last time I ever do this. And when that day comes, you do not want to get caught with your pants down because guess what? And you hear that. You hear it all the time. You hear guys say that. But they don't live it. They say it, and still to this day, I talk to my friends, some of which have made enough money where they'll never have to work again. But then we're living in a day and age where, like, what's not working again? You're still going to do something.
You got to.
But there's I think in my head, I just always prepared for that day. And I knew whenever the day would come, I wanted to be ready for it and do it on my own terms. And I started my first little business and started making a little bit of money off the field. That then gave me the confidence to know whenever the day came, I would be fine. And it also made me feel as though I didn't have a lot of pressure. It made me feel as though I didn't have a lot of pressure to be out there just feeling like this all I had, right? So anyway, I started my first business, and that gave me the confidence because I was making a few dollars off.
Right.
Started my second business, which was a construction company, and I remember in 1 week I had made more money than I had made in the previous years in the NFL combined.
Man, congratulations.
I had more money under contract.
It doesn't matter because it's revenue opportunity.
There you go. So I had more money under contract than I had made in the NFL in all of the previous years combined, and I was like, that's it. I'm done. My uncle was my agent, called him and was like, look, I'm never playing football ever again. Like, what
was that call like? Because I want you to tell me when you make that call and you say those words, I know that's the first time they came out your mouth.
Yeah, man, I played for 6 NFL teams in just about 3 to 4 years, and like the stress that puts on your body, your mind, having to go to all these different places, new teammates, new city. when you know you're a really good football player, but you haven't been able to put it together, getting hit, knocked out in your first game, become a starter in Buffalo. Go to Buffalo, become a starter, tear my hamstring off the bone.
Same one?
Different one.
Jesus.
Tear it off the bone, but this is serious. Like, this is almost something that needs surgery, so I'm out for a long period of time. Finally come back, just, they rushed me back. I'm not the same. So many different lessons that were built into my short career that prepared me for where I am now in life. So anyway, started that business. It did very well very quickly, and it was also something that I realized I needed to go all in because it was also an opportunity that I knew may not ever present itself again. And then, kind of went with my move. And but the call to my uncle and having that conversation, it wasn't easy, but I was very confident, and I was very sure of this decision because it was like one of the things where, still being a professional athlete is a job.
Yeah,
it could be taken away from you anytime. You could be fired, being cut. I wanted control of my life. I wanted to have control. I didn't want to have to be relying on the system. I didn't want to have to be relying on the quarterback. I didn't want to have to be relying on all these other factors anymore that, you were not in control of. I wanted to be
that's
in control.
humbling. That is humbling. The fact that your entire success wheel is predicated on other things that you don't have any control of.
No control over. And as a receiver, you're more reliant on other factors to be successful than any other position in sports, I feel like, because offensive line has to protect the quarterback. Quarterback has to get the ball to you, but the coaches got to draw up a scheme to get you the ball.
And a safe enough window for you to be able to be athletic enough to perform your duty.
Exactly. Again, I was able to do it at the highest level. Very fortunate for the life lessons and things that I was able to learn through that. But at the same time, for me, I just knew that the opportunity I had now in life outside of football, I wanted to take it, and then it just kind of unraveled to a lot of other things and, just kind of opened up my entrepreneurial window.
Okay, so now we done bit the entrepreneur apple.
That's right.
Okay, all right. So listen, I'm willing to start any kind of business ever if there is an opportunity, if there's common sense around it, and the path to perdition makes perfect sense for me.
That's right.
So what that means is that I'm in love with being in business and not just a business.
That's right.
And because let me tell you why. Because I have had a business for a long time, and I've fallen in and out of love with it because it changes. The people that come in, it changes. The real estate changes. The tax strategy changes. The income changes. And so while you love your candy shop, you might start hating it if it punishes you.
1,000%.
And the people come in and change it.
1,000%.
So this girl done came her negative attitude in my business and changed the way I feel about my business. So the model is for me to be in love with being in business.
That's right.
And so you got it.
Right. That's very well said because I feel like I have that same mentality. And I think being a former athlete has given me the ability to always be able to adjust on the fly. And like I said, I think sports is a great metaphor to life. So I've been able to apply those things and differences and changes and things that I've been able to, kind of navigate in life and apply those to sports. So I have, I now have restaurants, still have construction business, but don't do that and don't dedicate as much time to that anymore. Restaurants are a full-time thing.
They are.
But
you got to be locked in on that, don't you?
God, all in. But very fortunate to, again, still have my residual income coming in from a lot of the merchant service businesses I had from, years and years ago, which is, an amazing thing.
I bet.
And then, still having that background in construction and now into the restaurant world. So I'm in love with being in business as well.
There you go.
And not in love with a business.
There you go.
I love what I do. I do because I'm able to deal with people in hospitality and try and create the best experience possible for them, which is, I feel like, we, as a human being, that's just an innate ability that we all have. We all have hospitality in us. So to just be able to do that day in and day out, just try and create a great experience for people and educate them also on the cuisine.
So tell me how you did that. How did you end up in restaurateurship?
Yeah. You know what? I think, that's a good question.
Did it just fall in your lap, or did you?
Absolutely not, man. Just I never had any background in hospitality at all, nor did I ever have a want or desire to. And what I mean by that is, I think in everybody's mind, owning a restaurant, a club, a bar, that seems cool.
Yeah.
But also, everyone who's ever done it will tell you that's the hardest thing ever, or people like, that's the dumbest investment to make. It's so risky. It's not something, it's the risk to reward isn't worth it. Too much energy and time, and, it has to be invested, right? So all of those things. So again, I'm at a place now where I'm making my residual income from, credit card processing. I have construction money. I'm sitting at a place in my life where I'm a 25, 26-year-old young man at this point with a few businesses doing well, have the football career behind me. But again, I'm in love with business. I'm in love with opportunity. I'm in love with problem solving. I'm in love with working with people. And, I was sitting at a sushi bar one day here in Metairie, and it was the best sushi I've ever eaten in my life. And I'm someone who always, since a kid, has loved fishing, the outdoors. And, sushi kind of goes hand in hand with that. And I've eaten sushi all over the world. So I know what good sushi is like. And New Orleans, in my opinion, never has been a place that has had that level of sushi that you can get other places. Well, my mind was changed when I ate at this restaurant in Metairie. I'm eating this, the best sushi I've ever eaten in my life, and I'm talking to the chef. I assume he owns the restaurant. So I'm like, he's performing all these crazy techniques and things. He's educating me on the Japanese fish. And I'm like, wow, like, where are you from? He said, I'm from New Orleans East. I'm like, what?
Wow.
So I'm like, I'm from New Orleans East. Found out we grew up a few minutes apart from each other, and we kind of started unpacking life in a very heavy way very quickly. So we got deep, and then I'm also having this crazy experience eating this fish. So he and I are talking, and I'm like, man, congratulations, this restaurant is awesome, dude. The sky's the limit for you. Again, I assume he owns the restaurant. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, you own this place, right? He's like, no, I'm just the head chef. I run it, but I don't own it. And I'm like, dude, listen, give me your number and quit your job. Mind you, I don't know this dude.
That's a power conversation right there.
Literally. So we exchanged information. 2 weeks later, he calls me. I resign. I quit. So what's the plan? And I'm like, wow, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to start. I don't know where to begin.
Boy, listen to me. That's where it happens at. That's called getting dropped off in the desert and building a casino.
No, literally.
Yeah.
Literally. I have zero. I've never even worked in a restaurant as a freaking busboy, host, server, nothing. Zero experience.
You never took the trash out.
Never did it. So, but you know what I have? Just like you and everyone else, I've been a patron. I've been a customer in a restaurant. And I know what we all want when we go to a place. We all know what a good versus a bad experience is when you go to a restaurant. So I was able to apply the things that I knew we want when we go eat, right? You want to have a good atmosphere, great hospitality, great service. You want to have great food. And I was like, look, as long as we're able to apply those 3, we'll be able to create something special. But where do I begin? What space do we have? In my head, I thought this guy was so talented. Even if I'm able to just give him a food truck,
he can make it work.
I've done something.
Yeah.
Right? So call a few people, talking to my friends, reached out to a great mentor of mine, Sean Cummings, owns the International House Hotel. And I'm like, Sean, look, I got this chef, man. He's amazing. Like, but I don't know where to begin. If you have advice on where to start, you've been in hospitality for the last 25 years. Like, if you give me some advice, he's like, why don't you open up in the hotel? I was like, the hotel? I'm like, man, that restaurant is, that restaurant space had been vacant since COVID, and this is in 2020. Shoot, I met Matt in 2022. So this is 2022, so been vacant for a few years at this point, but mind you, beautiful space. So this is intimidating.
Since the pandemic, so COVID-19, so 2019 to 2022.
2020 to 2022, the space was vacant. Or 2023, we opened in 2023. But in 2022, end of 2022, Sean was like, open in a hotel. And in my head, very intimidating. Again, for someone who's never been in this industry, someone saying, take this restaurant space that is beautiful, much bigger than I ever anticipated my first restaurant would be. It's not like you opening up, a little space that don't have much expectation created, from around it. Well, and then again, this is a much bigger location than where I met him at. So I'm like, does he have the ability to run this place? He's just a chef.
Right.
I don't know how he is as an operator. Anyway, all those things going through my mind. But guess what? At the end of the day, in life, you got to start by starting. So I say, you know what? We're going to roll up our our sleeves and just get to work. So I said, Matt, what do you want to do? Matt Wynn is my chef's name and partner. Shout out to Matt, greatest sushi chef in the state of Louisiana. So he's like, I want to do omakase. I'm like, okay, in my head, I know what omakase is, but I'm like, in the city of New Orleans, what's,
Okay, well then tell me what omakase is.
Omakase means, the Japanese translation to that is, I leave it up to you. So you leave it up to chef to feed you. You pay a set price for a set amount of courses, and they feed you. You're not ordering anything.
Gotcha.
Right? And I'm like, okay, I like that, but let's do something different than, there was a restaurant on Carondelet, two blocks from us that was open. So I was like, I thought that would be a little risky, but I said, let's do it. Let's go with your move. Well, long story short, my man, we freaking opened up November 2nd, 2023. And we were booked out for a month. You couldn't get a reservation.
I love it.
Restaurant.
I love it.
And then, so the instant success we had in that, unlike other experiences in my life where I feel like the instant success and that success that I've had early on, could have distracted me or, didn't always turn out the way I wanted it. I had a different level of hunger in that moment, to be hungry, to continue to learn, to feel like I've never arrived, to feel like I have so much more to learn, especially being in a new industry.
Yeah.
But it's so crazy. People will come to us, hey, I'm about to open up a sushi restaurant out of town. Can you guys come consult for me? Can you help me? Mind you, these people have been in restaurants for 20, 30, 40 years, right? They're like, hey, can you come help us open our restaurant? And I'm thinking in my head, like, you want us to help you? This is, so that's the kind of success we had pretty quickly and pretty early. But
it was on the backs of all the other setbacks.
1,000%.
But I would also say, it sounds to me like you got moved to the front of the line again.
1,000%. I got moved to the front of the line, but I did not want that to be a result or in the way that it had in the past. Not that me ever going to the front of the line was a detriment in, how I approached my work ethic or, but I know in life we always have so much to continue to learn. And I feel like in this industry especially, it's very unforgiving, right? The food and beverage
Life
industry,
is unforgiving.
1,000%.
Because
1,000%.
every single day the rent is due.
1,000%.
Okay.
So, every day, man, I just move with a level of humility, and I just want to continue to learn and continue to put the next, foot in front of the other, because I feel like we never have arrived, and we got to continue to keep setting the bar. And I tell my chef that every day. I'm like, dude, every day people are like, this is the best sushi I've ever had. This stuff is amazing. I said, do not let that affect you and our ability to continue to get better every day, right?
Well, you know what? That makes sense to me, and now I understand.
Yeah.
Keep moving forward, keep striving, keep getting better, keep learning, and let gratitude be your guide.
Yep.
That's really what it is.
Yep.
Ladies and gentlemen, Malachi Dupre, he has given me a lesson in how to start fast, to start slow, but just to start, and to do whatever it takes to survive, because business is war. And his story, like many other stories, is one of redemption. It's one of improvement, of self-awareness, of self-reflection. His gifts have always been good to him, and so has this life, because he's chosen to make lemonade from lemons. I would say that not only is business is war, but we want to thank you for coming. How can someone come and support the restaurant? Tell us.
Yes. So my first restaurant, Kenji Omakase, 217 Camp Street at the International House Hotel. Come check us out. We're about to open on Metairie Road here in about a week or two, give or take.
Okay.
That one's called Kenji Kazoku.
Okay.
Come in, come check it out, come support. We have Japanese fish flown in every week. We dry age out everything in house, and then we also have a restaurant in Houston called Casa Kenji.
Okay, I like that.
3201 Allen Parkway. Come check us out at all 3 locations.
Man, you've been playing possum. You got 3 bad locations and everybody's all booked up. Yep. Listen, when I call, don't give me that chiropractor situation. Let me get up in there and get me a VIP table. Is that a deal? Yeah. Appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, Malachi Dupre, Business is War. Please like, comment,